to this video. This is Paszerine and today we are building again in The Sims 4. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can create your own stop motion speed builds along with a few tips and tricks to create a very seamless kind of video. I will also be sharing with you how you can edit it using Adobe Premiere or any other editing software. Pretty much the properties are more or less going to be the same. And this is going to be a very basic tutorial, so if you already know stop motion, hopefully you can learn a little bit more from this. For the sake of this tutorial, I decided to build this modular cafe by the docks. If you're interested in downloading this, you can get this in the gallery. My ID is Paszerine. Also, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more from me. I do try to upload as often as possible. So before we start our stop motion, one of the essential tools that we need to create these types of videos is the Free Cam in Build Mode mod by Twisted Mexi. You can download it in the link I put in the description. It basically just allows you to go into Free Cam while you're in build mode. Because essentially, when you are creating a stop motion video in The Sims 4, you are building backwards. This is also why I have a finished build placed here, ready to be demolished bit by bit. Likewise, do not forget your bb.moveobjects cheat, because sometimes when we delete objects in game, a lot of other objects around the lot get deleted too by accident, so we don't want that. Before we're gonna take our screenshots and our videos in game, we might as well set the camera settings in our local disk C, just so that we can have a smooth kind of transition whenever we're switching from one scene to another. So first things first, you open your file explorer and then you click local disk C, program files times 86, and since I downloaded The Sims 4 on Steam, I'll open Steam, but you can open Origin, and once you're in the Origin or Steam folder, which I actually also have, go ahead and search The Sims 4 on your search bar, or you could also manually try to locate it among the folders right here. I just like to make it quick by searching The Sims 4 because it will immediately take me to this folder. By the time that you locate your folder, you click on Game and then Bin, and we are gonna click RES video camera. This is basically what's gonna come out, this notepad text file. So go ahead and scroll down to the most bottom part of the notepad and you will see these numbers, easy in out 4.0. But if you have not tried this before, most likely it's going to say linear. Just change it to easy in out. I will show you what it looks like in the game in a bit. So this is what easy in out looks like. As you can see, it is slowly dragging to a halt. If it's linear, it's going to be like bounce from point A to point B without dragging into a halt like you do when we are trying to slow down. So it just really is too quick. And also the default interpolator time is basically how long it will take for your camera to get from point A to point B basically. So I put 4.0, but you can put 2 or 1 to make it faster, or you can go as high as maybe 15 and above, but that's how long it will take for your camera to get to point A to point B. For the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to keep it at 4.0 because this is the number I'm very comfortable with, and I could easily just edit the speed in Adobe Premiere if I do not like how fast it's going. So when you're finally done with this, you can file save and then you close this video camera and it is basically already in your game. When we finally set the camera settings in our game folder, we can finally proceed to taking screenshots of our build. So first things first is that you have to establish which part of your build you want to see first and which one you want to see last. Usually I start with my interiors first because this is a part of the build that I like to showcase last. And it doesn't matter how big your build is, it could be a really big build or a really small build. So since I'm in build mode and I have my mod in, I'm gonna press tab and it's just gonna show this part of my build. I could use my scroll wheel to move or zoom in and out, and I'm happy with this one. So on the keyboard, I'm gonna press Ctrl 5 because this is my scene number 5. On the keyboard, you could only set 5 scenes max. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are basically the numbers that you could use to set scenes. So Ctrl 5 for this scene. So if you decide on a Ctrl 5 scene, it has to be that, and then you could only replace that scene when you're already done with that part. So if it's Ctrl 5, remember that number, this is Ctrl 5. Sometimes accidents happen when you're recording a stop motion. So sometimes when you're in the scene and you would establish that this is your scene, that's Ctrl 5, and then you accidentally press 5 when you're trying to set the scene for this part of your building, you're gonna have to go back and redo it because you can no longer go back to your previous scene. I hope that makes sense to you guys. guys, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, or if you're not understanding this, feedback is very helpful. Alright, so I'm going to be starting to delete the items I already have here. So I'm gonna press K on my keyboard, or you can use the sledgehammer tool here at the top. The first things I'm going to delete are gonna be the last things that are gonna appear in the room. So the last things that's gonna appear are the paintings, and the first thing that's gonna appear is actually this light. So I'm just gonna go backwards. So I'm gonna go back to my scene 5 by pressing tab and 5. This is my new scene 5 because I accidentally pressed 5 on my keyboard while trying to set my scene 9. Like for example, something like that, or a different number on my keyboard. So I'm gonna go back and set my scene 5 again. This is my scene 5 again, Control 5. Basically, it is coming back, but this is not the right way to do it because we are in build mode. We have to be in free cam mode in build mode. So since I've already deleted my furniture, they're gonna start popping back up bit by bit, piece by piece, in the order of which I actually erased them or deleted them. I'm gonna press tab on my keyboard to take us into free cam mode while we are in build mode, and press 5 on my keyboard because this is scene 5. And I'm gonna press C to capture this very scene. It's gonna go straight to my directory, and all I have to do to exit free cam mode is press escape on my keyboard. Notice that I, as much as possible, move my cursor over here, because if I leave my cursor here, it's going to highlight this entire room, and I don't want to have that because it's gonna look like it's not uniform in my screenshot. We're gonna keep that away because we started with the room quite dark with a cursor not selecting this room. It's also the same with furniture, so really just keep the cursor away from your build when you're taking screenshots because we want to keep it uniform. We're gonna go ahead and press Ctrl Z so the light will show up, and I'm going to press tab and 5, and we're gonna press C on our keyboard to capture this screenshot. Now that that's done, let's move on to the next, which will show this slab of concrete right here. And we are gonna go ahead and press tab again. The mouse has to move the cursor a little bit away from your build so it won't be highlighted. So you've noticed that I do not just go ahead and do this. That really won't work. A screenshot is basically your frame in your stop motion. So you're gonna have to take a screenshot every time you press undo and you press 5 on your keyboard for that specific scene, or 6 or 7, 8 or 9. It all depends on how you set your scene. So this could be scene 5, and again this could be scene 6. Now that that's done, I'm gonna press Ctrl Z again, press tab, 5. And you notice that I don't take screenshots unless the camera stops entirely and not when it's still moving, because you're gonna take that screenshot. It's not gonna look very seamless when you put the frames together. It's gonna look like one frame is suddenly moving forward and the rest are uniform. So I'm gonna press C because it had paused a lot earlier. Next one again, Ctrl Z, tab, 5, waiting for it to pause, and C. It's basically going to be the same for the rest, so I'm just doing the same action over and over again and then pressing C when camera stops. Now that we're going to have the wall next, this shows up all these arrows and we don't want to have that. We can click on anything outside of the build, and also we could always just press escape on our keyboard to make it a lot easier. So tab, 5, and C again. Now that is basically done, we can continue on and show the furniture. Maybe we should because there's just 4 of them. So tab, 5, and C. Sync, tab, 5, and C. By pressing Ctrl Z, we're basically just undoing all our actions. We could also use this right here. Ctrl Y is to redo it. So we were deleting our items before, now we're bringing it all back together. So basically this is the room. And we're gonna check in our file folder if all the screenshots are okay and all lined up. Alright, so we exited the game for a bit just to check our screenshots in our folders. So you could check your screenshots in this PC, Documents, Electronic Arts, The Sims 4. It could appear here by default in screenshots, but I moved mine to screenshots reshade just because I kind of want it to be more uniform, or where everything is going to be. This is basically going to be our screenshot. I'm just going to open it. And as you can see, because I kind of made a mistake when I was taking screenshots, it is moving like this. So this happens. You can always just delete one scene, like this one. I'm gonna delete this one. And now that I'm back here with all my other screenshots, it's a little bit more uniform. So I'm just gonna check everything by pressing the right arrow key just to see if everything is in order. Looks like nothing is in disarray, nothing is moving, the camera stays steady, and there are no disappearing items in the other parts of the room. So now that we're done taking screenshots of this and that every item has already appeared when we were taking screenshots of it, we are going to delete all of this. Because the idea is to build backwards. So when we're done with the scene, we're gonna delete everything in it by pressing Ctrl Y or this right here on the top of your screen, redo. And we're gonna go to the scene before this, which is, let's say it's gonna be this scene. Control 6 this because this is our scene 6. If this is our scene 5, then this can be our scene 6. You can always adjust it by scrolling backwards or pressing Q to bring our camera down and moving it a bit. So I'm gonna press 5 again to see what it looks like when it is going to scene 5. I just want to make sure there are no obstructions, like we are going through this wall. We're gonna move this, we're just gonna adjust it to like a better view of this area. So press 5 and we are no longer being blocked by that wall, or it's no longer an obstruction, or we're no longer going through it, so it looks kind of better. So now we're going to record our transitions from scene 5 to scene 6, and in order to do that, you could actually use the in-game recorder, though I do not recommend it because the quality is very different. And I only switch from one scene to another when the camera is finally slowed to a halt, so I take as many of these as possible, just in case I make a mistake. I could always delete the rest. So press V on my keyboard because I'm done recording this video. Another thing I want to note in defense of the fact that you cannot create this in live mode and it's a lot more difficult. Well, you can, but the lighting tends to change also. So sometimes when I do my stop motions, when I exit the game and I come back, the lighting is all different and it just kind of feels weird for me. So usually when I do my stop motions, I record the interior first for the entire day, and then I take a break, and then I do the exterior the next day. But it's not necessary, not entirely, because these do take days to create depending on the build. And also when you're in live mode, sometimes the weather changes, your sims kind of do something crazy. That's kind of annoying, especially if you don't have mods to move them out of the lot. So it's always best to just do your stop motions in build mode, unless you're the type of person to include them while you are doing your stop motion, just so that you can show your viewers that you're play testing a lot and that this particular item actually works. For scene 6, the first thing I want to reappear when I'm taking screenshots is this chair, because it's at the very back. It's best if you start deleting outside in, because it just looks a lot better. Like everything is coming together, coming a bit closer to the camera, and you get to see all the details, and it just works really well. So we're just gonna delete this chair, and then these are shelves that I put together, and this one, this chair, and again the planks. Now that's all deleted, we're gonna go back and moving our cursor away. We're gonna press 6 first, and as you can see, the issue here is that my mouse, my cursor is inside, but we're gonna move slightly outside, slightly outward, pressing tab again, press 6. Just a little bit of movement, nothing too drastic, nothing too far away, nothing too close, because the problem with that is that the outside of your build will also be showcased, so sometimes the trees, I'm so sorry, the trees disappear and reappear and then disappear again, and the plants are kind of in a weird shape or something that happens, and that's really annoying. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but we can find a way to alleviate it with just a few simple tricks. It's basically going to be the same process, just Control Z, tab 6 this time since it's scene 6. I press 6 twice just to make sure I'm pressing 6, and you press C or whatever hotkey you set if you're using reshade. It's better if you use reshade, but I'm just using my hotkeys for the in-game. If you've noticed that I haven't set the scenes for the next few parts of this build, which you can actually do if you want, but I just want to show you that you can do one scene at a time. It will still come out okay. Also, when you decide to take screenshots one scene at a time, it kind of minimizes the number of mistakes you made when you're creating a stop motion, because when you're taking screenshots and then all of the scenes all together, you kind of, sometimes you make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes you forget that this part of the build has to be empty when you do your transitions, or you forget that you kind of took screenshots of this part twice, which actually happens a lot, and it's really difficult to keep it uniform, to maintain it as much as possible. So you just have to be patient, and this method will help you not have as many mistakes as you usually do. So I hope it really works out. Alright, so now that we have all the items in our scene 6 back, we are gonna go ahead and check out the screenshots in our file explorer so that we can proceed to scene 7, which will just be a quick one. Let's hope we didn't make any mistakes in scene 6 that we have to go back and redo it. I should also probably mention that if you take screenshots in game, it's gonna appear like this. If you sort this by date, it's all very organized, and this is the first scene and this is the last scene of scene 5, where all the toilet and the sink already appear, and this is also the first scene of scene 6. And I'm gonna check if it's alright. This one's alright. The lighting kind of changes because the item's already appearing, but as you can see on the outside, nothing changes, which is great, and I'm very happy for that. Well, just there. Look, the building kind of has this weird outline, and that happens, and that's normal. It's barely noticeable, so I'll let it slide. By the way, you could always change your scene 6 to a different one when you're done with this, because you will only need this 3 times when you create transitions from scene 5 to scene 6, or scene 6 to scene 7, which will be this part of the build right here. You could always change your scene 6 into something else later in the future. I just have to remember that you cannot go back once you do that. Let's go ahead and do scene 7 real quick so that we could already piece everything together and put them in Adobe Premiere so that we can create our mini stop motion based on this tutorial. Alright, so now we're in Adobe Premiere, but before we start editing, we will have to arrange our screenshots so that it will be a lot easier for us to take them all in one group and edit. And I decided to move them out of my documents and move them to a different folder. So I decided to create folders 1, 2, and 3, 1 being the first set of screenshots that we are going to edit and we are going to place here on our timeline. And I created number 2 for the second set of screenshots that we are going to place in our timeline. And here's folder number 3. You notice that this is the first group of screenshots that we took, which is the top view of the bathroom. This will be the last one to appear on our timeline based on our arrangement. Likewise, since we have our transitions, we can create a folder just for our transitions. It's best if you really do arrange your screenshots first before placing them here, because it's a lot faster, especially if you have Adobe Premiere. So I've just dragged my folders into Adobe Premiere. We'll start with placing one by opening the folder and selecting the first frame and shift on the keyboard to select all the frames. So we'll start with dragging this one here, and I'm just gonna move my transitions here, which I already placed because they were actually from the video that I was recording for this tutorial. Yeah, this is my first frame, and as you can see, the items are coming to the screen. And in order to create a more smoother type of animation, I can add transition. So I'm just gonna select all of these keyframes, and on my keyboard I'm gonna press Ctrl D. It just automatically adds the crossfade transition, or whatever this transition you prefer to have, but I just really prefer the crossfade one. If you don't like the crossfade transition, you could always change it by going to Effects, and we always have our video transitions folder. There's 3D motion, like a cube spin, dissolve, and everything else, or you could always get external ones if you're not satisfied here. I just really want to keep it simple, keep it clean. That's why I'm using crossfade, which is really the default transition. And you notice that my dissolve is quite fast. You can actually set the speed of your transitions in Adobe Premiere by default so that it's uniform for all your keyframes. So in order to set your video transition speed, you can go to Edit, Preferences, and Timeline. And right here I actually set it on 8, but you can have 10 to make it slower. And also the same with audio, you just keep your audio and your video the same. So you can set it to 10 to make it slower, or even you can go as far as 30 frames. You want it really slow. So we're gonna set our new transition speed to 10 frames. And so we're gonna select all the keyframes and Ctrl D on our keyboard. and I think it's slightly larger than the previous one. It plays out differently, so we're gonna play it. It shows up a bit slower too. And you notice that it's quite slow when it appears. So we can always speed it up by selecting all the keyframes, right click, nest, let's call it 1. And then we can right click the nested keyframes, speed and duration. We can have the speed to be a little faster, let's say about 130% faster. So it's about 4 seconds now and 29 milliseconds. So it totally depends on you on how fast you want your frames to go. I could even go a lot faster, let's say 200. Now we can add our transition. So I just dragged my transition from where it was and placed it directly beside it. And now it's moving like this in the speed. And I think it is quite slow for 4 seconds. So we could always just change the speed of this too. So I want to make it around 130%. Alright, so now that we have this transition, we can add the next batch of frames, which is going to be folder 2. We're gonna group these as well. Now this is nest 2. So we're just gonna select all of these keyframes again by clicking and dragging your cursor and then nest 2. Okay. And since we already made a nest without adding our dissolve or our crossfade transition, we could always go inside the sequence by double clicking it. You can see that this is 2 right here, and this is our main sequence right here, and this is just 2. We can go here and we're gonna select all the keyframes by clicking here and dragging there. Control D. Now that we have our default transition arranged as well, we'll just delete the first and the last crossfade because it's gonna start from black. Because if we leave it on, there's gonna be like a black space here. It's gonna be like that. So we have to remove this. Just the first transition you see right here, we'll just leave the rest there, and we'll also delete the one or the last keyframe. So now it's a little bit more seamless. We're just gonna change the speed, similar to the first sequence, the number 1 right here, the one we did earlier, to 150%. So that is a lot faster and it's also a lot more uniform to look at. Lastly, we're going to add the last scene, which was our scene 5 when we were recording. I recorded this backwards. We can always just edit this in Adobe Premiere. So I'm gonna right click this clip, speed and duration, and reverse speed. Just click reverse speed. I also want it to be 130%, just like the other transition that we have in between 1 and 2. So this is what it looks like basically. It's a lot more seamless now. And we could always add the crossfade in between your sequence and the clip of the transition. So I'm just gonna add it here by selecting these both and pressing Ctrl D on my keyboard. It will add the transition here in the end. Sometimes it does that, sometimes it does it in between. I don't understand. I'm not an expert in this program, but when that happens, you could always just select this part, the video instead, and pressing Ctrl D on your keyboard, and it will just fade. So it's a lot more smooth. If I remove this, it'll just immediately light up like that. But if I add the dissolve, it's going to be a more smoother transition to the next video. Alright, last but not least, we're adding scene 3, which was scene 5 while we were recording. We're gonna select all of these and pressing Ctrl D to add our transitions. And I'm gonna select all of this, right click, nest, name my sequence into 3. So that it's 1, 2, and 3 right here. 1, 2, and 3. Change my speed by right click, speed duration to 150%, so it's a lot faster. And now we have this last transition, and then we also have this last part of the video. We're gonna play everything from the beginning to the end. The videos were actually recorded using an external recording app, again, like I've mentioned, but you can use the in-game app. It's not gonna appear the way you want it to, which is why I highly discourage that. It's better if you just use OBS or you use Radeon or something, or another software. Alright, so this is the one with the in-game camera. The resolution isn't as great as much as you edit it, but it does the job regardless. So that's all for this video. I hope you learned something from me. If you'd like to suggest anything, feel free to comment. Feel free to give me constructive criticism. I'm very open for it. I want to be able to learn how to make tutorials a lot better. And if you like my content, please do like and subscribe. I try to upload as often as possible. Please check out my socials. I have Instagram and I also have Twitter, and sometimes I post on Reddit where I have met a lot of you, which was pretty cool to be a little bit incognito every now and then. So yeah, feedback is very helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and happy simming, everyone.